What's going on, guys? It's Luke22S3 here, and today I'm here with my F1 2020 game ideas. And I've seen Arava's uploaded a video just like this as well recently. I haven't seen that one yet, so it'll be interesting to see how this compares to his, and I'll be watching that one shortly as well. But without further ado, let's get straight on into this video then. In the background, it's just some gameplay from my career mode series at the German Grand Prix of Season 1. But moving on to my first point then. And my first point is going to be the pre-season and in-season tests along with an R&D overhaul. That's just one point there. And the R&D overhaul, that would involve, as we've seen at the moment in the current F1 game, Red Bull have the highest potential growth at the end of Season 10. They should have the best car at the end of Season 10. And that is because they have the most improvement points for their R&D. But that shouldn't be the case. It shouldn't be like that every time. We should have different outcomes and different outcomes after every career mode. And for the way they could do this is having after every rule change, they could have at the end of every rule change, every web could change a little bit. And for example, Racing Point could have more aero upgrades available to them, and maybe they'll have less upgrades to available to their chassis. Things like that need to be added into the game to perhaps make it different for every rule change. And then at the end of Season 10, we might see different teams in at the top of the spectrum in every different career mode. For example, it might be Racing Point in one career mode, Renault in the next, and then Mercedes in the career mode after that one. So that would really help, and that would make it more exciting as well, add more longevity to the game, and for sure that would be a fantastic thing to see. But hopefully Codemasters can add that to their game, because that would be awesome to have a sort of overhaul to the R&D and just make it so that you don't know who's going to be on top at the end of Season 10, because that's the way it should be, really. But moving on to my next point then is the AI needs to be more, well, the AI overhaul as well. For this first point, there's 2 points linked together here. The first point though is the strategy side of things. They need to have a different sort of strategy, not just the fixed ones that we see where, you know, I don't know, like someone will be pitting on lap 9 every time, and then the driver after that will be pitting on lap 10. It needs to be different to that. We've seen this season, we've seen Vettel pitting early, Leclerc running long, just because that was their only hope of Ferrari trying to beat Mercedes in that race. We need to see that kind of thing happen into this career mode. And perhaps maybe that should be in some sort of team order thing as well. Maybe your engineer would come onto the radio and be like, okay, we need to go longer into this stint if we want to have a chance of beating the Mercedes today, or something like that. Or maybe you can just pit whenever you want in that case. But for AI, that should be the case. I think they should be perhaps try and undercut some drivers if they're stuck behind them. For example, in Monaco and corner track where it's very hard to overtake, we should see AIs making undercuts and overcuts, and definitely different strategies there. And then for the wet weather conditions as well, still on the strategy side of things, we should see drivers perhaps staying out longer on dries if they feel more comfortable, or perhaps maybe someone will make a bold decision to go on to full wets very early, like we saw in Malaysia 2009 when Raikkonen was out on full wets for a very long time when it was still bone dry. Maybe just crazy decisions like that need to be made. Just more human side of things to the AI is what we need to see, because at the moment they all know exactly the right time to pit. As soon as it says DRS is disabled, they just come darting into the pits, every single car. We need to see, well, unless it's a few cars that are stuck behind a teammate, they'll stay out for an extra lap. But we need to see more sort of human side of things. Maybe, I don't know, Kubica has a chance of points, so he stays out, and then he's running in P8. And of course, all the guys that have pitted already will be coming at him hell for leather. But that's the kind of thing we need to see. If you're low on points, you might try and stay out longer. That's how I've managed to gain a lot of positions in races before on career modes that I've done, just by staying out a little bit or pitting at a bit earlier time to the AI. But that is something that needs to be looked at. I think the AI needs to be more human and definitely have a lot more characteristics to them. And because at the moment it's really dull just to fight the AI, and you know exactly when they're going to pit when it starts raining. So you can't really gain too much from the advantage sometimes, unless, of course, some drivers have stuck behind their teammates to stay out an extra lap. But that brings me on to my next point, and that needs to be the AI themselves being more human in terms of racecraft and mistakes. And I think that would be perfect to see cars spinning, having their own little accidents, maybe having accidents with each other, and just in turn more realistic mistakes. We don't see that in the F1 game. The only thing we really see is lockups occasionally happen, but they tend to be bulletproof and always train tracking each other. You know exactly what line to take. Maybe some drivers will take different lines to each other as well in certain conditions, and we'll see some drivers dip it onto the AstroTurf and make a mistake spin. We need to see some sort of AI that can do stuff like that. I don't know what kind of technologies they have at Codemasters, whether they can sort of make that happen, but it'd be great to see AI sort of just being more human in that sort of aspect, instead of just being able to, for example, right here, you can see them all sort of going into single file, and then until they get to the back where they're sort of double file, but maybe someone will have a dive bomb and just ridiculously miss their braking point, smash into the back of someone, and put them out of the race. That's something we should see more often as well. And also adding on to that with the wet weather sort of thing, we need to see more spinning as well, because when it goes from dry to wet, the AI are exactly fine. You won't see any AI oversteering or going off when it's dry to wet conditions, which is so frustrating to see when you're struggling for grip, and then boom comes Lance Stroll on his hard tyres, still managing to stay on track, and you're like wondering how on earth he's managed to do that. But it's because he's glued to the track. He's an AI on the Codemasters game. We saw in F1 2012 games like that on the past gen consoles, where they were actually spinning a lot more when it started to go from dry to wet, and then going out of the race and you see an HRT in the points, stuff like that. That was the best thing about the pre PS4, Xbox One sort of games in terms of dry to wet conditions. But now on the current era of F1 games, they're just very dull, the AI at the moment in terms of dry to wet. They're very good at racecraft, wheel to wheel, apart from they tend to cut you off when you're trying to overtake them into a corner. That needs to sort of being looked at as well, because they don't really seem to notice you, or they just all turn into Maldonado when you're on the inside of them going into the corner. But that brings me on to my next point then, which is Formula 3 being added to the game. Now we've seen on this current game, Formula 2 has been added to the game, which is great. That's a great addition to the game, and great that they've added Formula 2 2018 season as well, because that makes perfect sense to add the 2018 season when you're doing your journey into Formula 1, and then you'll be on the 2019 grid as well, which is great to see. I'm not sure how they would actually do that for Formula 3, whether they'd have the 2017 Formula 3 grid, and then the 2018 Formula 2 grid, or, well, for the next one it'd be 2018 Formula 3, 2019 Formula 2, and then 2020 Formula 1. I'm not sure if that's the way they would do it or not, but it would be great to see Formula 3 added to the game at least, and also great to see it integrated into career mode as well with Formula 2, and a bit more of a story, a few more races at least in Formula 3, and a few more races in Formula 2, and a bit more of a story lineup perhaps in Formula 3 and 2 with Lucas Weber and Devon Butler, and perhaps for every decision you make as well, there should be a different outcome as well in terms of the story. You could be more friendlier with Devon Butler, or you could be more friendlier with Lucas Weber, or any other characters that could get added to the game. There could be more than just two in the next one, who knows, but that would be great to see. If perhaps maybe if you ignored the team orders to the first one, it'd be great to see that added into the next game. If you ignore the team orders, you'd end up having to a different scenario into the next scene, but that'd be great to see. And then for my next point, we see drivers retiring from the game as well. So Raikkonen, he wouldn't be doing 10 seasons, he'd end up retiring after a while. And then again, Formula 2 drivers graduating with you, and Formula 3 drivers graduating as well. That would be awesome to see, which would make a different interesting element to the game after 10 seasons. And then for my next point is financing teams. That would be great to see as well, having added finance. For example, Williams at the moment in real life, they're struggling quite badly. They're at the back of the grid, and for a Racing Point, they've added a massive cash injection thanks to Lance Stroll. And for the next game, we should see perhaps different teams struggling with money and different teams doing well. For example, if Haas have a massive financial problems, they might have to look at Mahiva Raghunathan and sign him up and give him a massive cash injection. I'm not sure if they'll be that desperate, but you could see things like that happening in the next F1 game. That would be awesome to see, and for sure that would be great to see added to the game. And again, that would just add a whole new element might see Ferrari slipping down because perhaps they've run out of money. I'm not sure how that would happen, but you know, just something that would make it more characteristic and more longevity of the game. And then finally, a manager mode that should be added to the game as well. That would be awesome. So I see that because with the transfers that have happened in the current game, it would be awesome to see a manager mode sort of added in, and it would be great to see sort of being able to choose your own drivers and then having to control them yourself. But after that, then you'd have your own choices to perhaps lead Ferrari and different things like that, and be able to put Lewis Hamilton in a Ferrari and maybe have your own dream team there. But that would be great to see. I'm not sure how that would link in with the career mode itself, but maybe it would be a different feature. But that's going to be the end of the video there, guys. If I think of any more suggestions, they'll be in another video. But for now, that's going to be the end of the video there. So like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoyed it today, and I'll see you very soon for the next video.
This lap, please.